integrity and sincerity and truth. May our religion be filled with gladness, and may our worship be natural. Strengthen and increase our admiration for honest dealing and clean thinking, and suffer not our hatred of hypocrisy and pretense ever to diminish. Encourage us in our endeavor to live above the common level of life. Make us to choose the harder right instead of the easier wrong, and never to be content with the half-truth when the whole can be won. Endow us with courage that is born of loyalty to all that is noble and worthy, that scorns to compromise with vice and injustice, and knows no fear when truth and right are in jeopardy. Grant us against flippancy and irreverence in the sacred things of the life. Grant us new ties of friendship and new opportunities of service. Kindle our hearts in fellowship with those of a cheerful countenance, and soften our hearts with sympathy for those who sorrow and suffer. Help us to maintain the honor of the poor untarnished and unsullied, to show forth in our lives the ideals
From number 6, please bow your heads. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Amen.
This concludes our service, but I'm going to ask you all to please be seated. For those who are not staying for the introduction tour of the Citadel and for lunch, please feel free to depart at this time. No one's going to take your names. Promise. Having spent 7 years in the Charleston area, I can tell you it's starting to get warm outside. Tom Corelli knows this. It gets a little sweaty out there. And the one thing about Summerall Chapel was that it was the coolest place on campus, especially in summer. Their plebes, called knobs, would fill this place because it's the only place other than the president's office that had AC. And they'd rather be here talking to the Lord than in the president's office talking about what's going to happen after that. One of the classes that I got to know through one of their graduates is the class of 67. Right, Jay? That's right. I got to know it because I became good friends with a wonderful leader by the name of General Mike Steele. Some of you may have known and served with Mike. But the class of 67, for their 50th project, contributed to build the War Memorial outside. I've asked Jay to come and tell us a little bit about that project. Jay Keenan, class of 67, come on up and share with us.
Good morning. It's interesting that our Citadel War Memorial, which is built just outside, sits in front of the grave of General Mark Clark. In fact, General Clark, who was a graduate of West Point in 1917, is the only person buried on the Citadel campus. So I would hope that after we meet this morning that you would walk next door and tour his grave and, of course, take a look at our war memorial. It all began on September 3rd, 1963. You fellows are a little younger than I am. Trying to think back where you were in 1963, but 663 of us, the class of 1967, reported here on a very hot September morning. So after that, we got accustomed to the Citadel way. We learned how to be knobs. You learned how to be plebes. Classes began. But in November, in fact, November the 22nd, 1963, and you all remember where you were, we were shocked, literally shocked, that Friday afternoon before parade to hear that John F. Kennedy had been assassinated. And the war in Vietnam began to escalate. As the semesters went by and we matured somewhat, we would all, as a Corps cadets, march to breakfast, lunch, and dinner in the mess hall. And was the custom, the regimental commander would make announcements and so forth. But occasionally, he would mention the name, and we would all bow our heads and have silent prayer, the name of another Citadel alumni that had been killed in Vietnam. When we were knobs, plebes, these are just names to us. We didn't know those people, but by the time we reached our junior and senior years, knew those men because they had been before us while we were here. They were our platoon leaders and our company commanders, our squad sergeants. We'd been to classes with them. In fact, the co-captains of the 1965 football team killed in Vietnam within about 2 months of each other. So we graduated June the 3rd, 1967, about a little over 300 of us. And in 1967, you remember that was called by the press the Summer of Love. Well, it wasn't for us. Because most of us went on active duty in various schools and so forth during that, quote, Summer of Love. And the war in Vietnam was raging. Barely 6 months after we graduated, some of us received word we didn't have cell phones and social media, so things didn't happen quite as fast as far as notifications. But we heard that our first classmate had been killed in Vietnam, Tom O'Connor. By the end of 1969, 2 years after we had graduated, we had lost 4 more of our classmates, and our family then Cook was a POW. He later died in Vietnam. All told, our class lost 11 of our classmates in Vietnam. But they weren't the only alumni, of course, of our college. By the end of that terrible war, 88 Citadel alumni had died in Vietnam. And I know most of you didn't have the opportunity to be in that war as you graduated in 72. But we always remember our classmates, as you remember yours on the wall there. Those guys never came to a reunion. They never joined us for many reunions. They never got together with us. They weren't here. They didn't enjoy the life that we had. So Mike called me one day about 15 years ago. He was living in Charleston at the time as a chaplain, and said, you know, we need to do something for our 50th reunion, which is coming up. And he envisioned a war memorial. And so we talked to a number of our classmates about it. We went to the administration. It was approved by the Board of Visitors, and the space was set aside. And we raised over $5 million to build, from our class, to build the Citadel War Memorial. And on that war memorial is the name of every Citadel alumni, not graduate, but alumni to have been killed in action. Now, many other, of course, have died in various ways throughout the course of our time. But since 1842, when our college was founded, we have 953 names that we put on that wall. One of our classmates, and they're organized by the various conflict and war that they were in, including the war between the states. We had alumni that fought on both sides of that terrible conflict, and their names are on that wall. One of our classmates, John Worley, a friend of all of us, had recently written a book about the Citadel from the 60s until now. In the 60s, of course, General Clark was the president when we got here. And he wrote a real fine book showing the history of what went on about the school. So we asked John if he would write an inscription for the inside of the war memorial. So as you walk into the war memorial, the black columns, the names of those alumni listed on the walls, but on the walls that you walk through, his narrative of who we are as Citadel men. Not at this point women, but unfortunately in the future it will be. We hope no one goes on that wall. But John wrote a beautiful narrative, And he ended the war memorial by saying, "No one reading these words can fail to hope that the last names has been added to the vault." But history shows that's not very likely. What is certain is that when the country calls, the Citadel will answer. And since we dedicated that war memorial, one more name has been added to it. Staff Sergeant Solis from Somerville, South Carolina, was killed in Afghanistan and was also awarded the Medal of Honor. So I would ask that you take a minute and visit our war memorial. And thank you for coming to Charleston. God bless.
There's a hope that everyone here understands that emotion, my friend. We understand it, and we honor what your graduates have done for our nation. Thank you. And now I'm going to invite my friend, Cadet. Oh God, you're not a cadet anymore. I apologize. You just act that way. Yeah, I know, it's 20 years ago. Chaplain Aaron Meadows, who's going to come up and at least lie about me somewhat. And tell about this wonderful chapel, and then give you a little bit of the history. And afterwards, when we depart, now I know some of you not want to, but afterwards, when we depart, I do encourage you to take a look at the War Memorial. General Clark's grave is there, but Aaron is going to lead those who wish across the parade field over to 2nd Battalion Barracks, and you get to see what they live in, which is just colored different, guys. It just is the same ratty rooms that we grew up in.
No, they have air conditioning now. So. No, it's a joy to be able to share with y'all. Joel called a few months ago and said he wanted to share the best military institution with y'all. He'll deny it in public, but when I came back after being a cadet here, I'm no longer a cadet. I've been busted in rank before, but that was harsh. That was a few. I came back and I had escaped here in 2004 and thought I would never come through those gates again. And God has a sense of humor. And showed back up and was doing campus ministry, and this West Pointer was running the chapel. So it was a lot of fun coming back and doing campus ministry, and enjoyed those times. We would always rib each other back and forth. But to share with y'all a little bit about this, the War Memorial was not here when I was here. The names are still put on the front of the chapel. We have to put them in two places because, as you understand, there's arguments about names and how they should be there. So when the War Memorial was built, they had a different criteria. So now we honor our faithful Citadel, those who have gone on and served and paid the ultimate sacrifice in two places. On the front of the chapel, there at the War Memorial. And for the Citadel Cadets, the Citadel ring, which is the same every year, just the number changes. It's a very important rite of passage here at the Citadel. The Citadel ring is given here in the chapel in the sacred place, and the cadets walk out, they column right, and as they pass the War Memorial, they give a salute to those who have gone before and paid that sacrifice. So it's a way we honor those who have gone before. And just like Jay talked about with hearing in the mess hall, singing about those who have passed. And when I was here after September 11th, being in the mess hall and hearing about my classmates and those who were there and dying in Afghanistan, it's a reminder of why we train to do these things to support our nation. The Citadel, when it was founded, in 1842, just 40 years after that other military school up north, was actually in downtown Charleston. Washington Light Infantry, we in the South had all these militias, going around doing those sort of things. The Washington Light Infantry, connected to our revolutionary past, they had turned over the keys to the original Citadel building on Marion Square, which is now a pink Embassy Suites hotel. It's okay. And they began to train cadets in 1842 there, and they were continued to train there after the War of Northern Aggression. After the Civil War, the institution was shut down for a few decades, and then in the 1880s they brought it back up. But in 1922, they had outgrown that space there on Marion Square. They needed more land, so they moved here in 1922. The barracks straight across, Paget Thomas Barracks, was the original barracks built. It was rebuilt about 20 years ago. Actually, when I was a cadet, they were tearing it down and rebuilding it. So it is a reproduction. Modern reproduction of the barracks that was there in 1922. Bond Hall, which is, I'll point out for those who listen to over here, our administrative building where our president, the provost, and other administrators are housed, and some of the academic classes were taught. That was also one of the original buildings. And then the infirmary, which, I don't know how y'all's infirmary was. You walked in, and there was this lime green paint, these pictures of folks from the 1800s. It was like going into an insane asylum from a movie. And it was almost as bad as getting yelled at by the upperclassmen, so you had to weigh where you wanted to be. But Bond Hall, the infirmary, are about the only two original buildings left here. All the others came in later or have been replaced just for the need of replacing them. But then in 1936, the foundation stone for Summerall Chapel was laid. So it was built in 1936, and this facility opened in 1937. And again, the same air conditioning that was working in 1936 is the same air conditioner that is cooling you now. These huge fans blowing that air has been replaced with knobs that hide and keep you gray and used since then. But this is one of the oldest buildings on campus. Obviously, it was built in this beautiful cruciform pattern. The stained glass windows installed, honoring biblical characters from history, and including one of the changes that was made. There used to be 3 nights, but then put up to honor patriotism here on campus. And so this was originally the cadet chapel, and it was named after our General Summerall, who was our president from 1931 to 1953, to honor him, to both be a place of worship, a place of prayer, and a place of patriotism. That's what they installed it as. During Hurricane Hugo, which is a hurricane that hit in 1989, it destroyed the original organ, which used to just be pipes over here. And so when they restored it, which again, Joel was part of that restoration of the organ, where they restored it, now we have restored pipes on this side, they added pipes in this chamber, and then they added the trumpets in the back. And then, so it's now one of the largest organs in the Southeast. And it was last year, we had our first time hearing pipes in the chapel again and again. We'll have our organ dedication this fall. So we're very excited about that. But this is an active place of worship. We have now, we actually have the church at Summerall Chapel. It's a non-denominational congregation that myself and the other chapels pastor, and it worships year-round for the community here. Additionally, to having chapel every Sunday, there's a Catholic group that has Mass every evening as well. We also have almost 20 different campus ministries. As y'all can remember, life as a cadet is very regimented, and everyone's going in all these different directions. So there's time carved out on Monday nights and Thursday nights where cadets are able to come. They are able to worship together. Most of the church groups provide home meals, which for some reason cadets prefer over the mess hall. And there's this space, and we have an active group of the 40 campus ministers who, from their own denominations and parachurch groups, come and minister to our cadets and help us take care of the nearly 2,400 cadets that we have here and provide for their spiritual needs. Certainly, just like the chaplains in the military, and I'm the reserve chaplain of the 315th Airlift Wing. I know you call us the chair force, but I pull out my picture of myself in flight in the C-17 cockpit, and I say some chairs are better than others. My cadets give me a hard time. And we do feel hard and really sad about when we sit there in our hotel rooms and look out at the pup drilling together. So, but we provide for all different phases. We don't have a ministry group that meets here. We make sure those cadets can get connected elsewhere. But between our nearly 2,400 cadets, our 1,000 faculty and staff, and our nearly 700 grad students, it's an active, vibrant community which we get to provide for. The Citadel is different and is continuing to evolve. Unlike y'all who are federally funded, again, as we are restoring the stained glass windows, and as we bring on new staff, we're a state school, and so pretty much most of that is fundraising I do. Last night I was in Columbia meeting with alumni, telling them, hey, we need to fix the chapel. It's a 90-year-old building. We need to raise all this money. We have to do that through our generous alumni base because we're not federally funded. We just don't have the state funds to provide for the staff and those other things. So that's a difference than what y'all experience. But all cadets are required to engage with the different ROTC branches. So we have all the different branches, the ROTC units here. When I was here, you had to go for 4 years. Now you only have to go to ROTC for 2 years. If you're going to go into the civilian population, you can replace those ROTC requirements your last 2 years with other courses that will help you where you want to go. But that does open the opportunity for about 35% of our graduates go into the military. And the rest just come here for the tradition, the military experience, because they made the wrong turn and came through their gates, started getting yelled at. And again, it becomes a tight-knit network. And that's the joyous things, is we always bring each other in the different academies and those sort of things. But just a recognition that time together bonds us together. Brothers are his brothers and sisters. Now that all of our colleges are co-ed, it binds us together as a family so that we can support one another, both in the difficulties in life and also for our time in service. I know this is a very brief kind of overview of the Citadel and certainly of the Summerall Chapel, which hopefully y'all had a good time here. For those that are more interested, there's going to be two things. Miss Jerry, who's my boss, over to the left, to keep the chapel running. She has printed out a bunch of, she took care of me as a nom, and now she's taking care of me as a chaplain. So Miss Jerry's a wonderful part of our ministry here. I encourage you to say hello to her. But she has about 75 of these maps in the back. And so what I will do is I will, as we are dismissed, I will go out to the parade deck. Anyone who's interested, you can come over there. I'll point out a few things. You'll have your map with you. And then you can then at that point start walking around and looking at the things that are labeled on the map. I will walk to the barracks, and for those who are interested, to be able to go into the sally port, kind of stand on the edge of the quad, and from there I can explain the living quarters in the barracks. And from there I'll dismiss you all to again walk around campus. Glad to answer any questions you have. But again, thankfully y'all are here. Thankfully y'all are continuing to gather together again in honor of those who come.
I said we weren't going to take an offering. I didn't lie. But having said that, as you go out, you'll see a box in the back. Aaron is right. This is not like what we grew up with. It's not federally funded. They have to raise everything from repairs, for cadet ministries, for everything. So if you feel led, please do. There's a gray box in the back, and I would encourage us to go ahead and just give a little something so that this man, who is a terrific chaplain, we tease each other, we do. It's not his fault, he's in blue. He is, but he's an honorable servant, and I want him to be able to take care of his cadets as well. So if you would graciously think about that, please do. With that, we are dismissed. Lunch. Man, we're on top of it, Larry. We're on top of it, brother.
You are.
We're moving, okay. So we do have time. I would encourage you, again, Aaron will meet you out on, one of the things I learned, they refer to that big green lawn out there as the parade deck. I'd never heard that. I always thought, you had the parade field. The parade ground. Well, the parade deck comes because we have a bunch, listen, as much as I tease him about being able to, we got a bunch of Marines around here. And they're all talking about this deck and that deck. Yeah, I pray for you. So he will meet you out on the parade field, can share some more. He'll have they'll have the maps out there. Take some time. Larry, what time is?
11:30 is the, we should.
11:30. Now, Mark Clark Auditorium, that is Mark Clark Hall over there. That is a student activity center. Mark Clark, the wheelchair ramp is off the side. When you go in, there are 2 sets of stairs that go up to the 2nd floor. There is also an elevator there. When you get out of the elevator, you get up to the top. That's where Mark Clark Auditorium is. Just enter in. The caterers will have the food set up. I would encourage you to go ahead, and if you want to find a place first, that's fine. Go through the line. I have invited Colonel Michael McClendon, who is the professor of military science here for the Army program, to come and speak to us about how they select and train their cadets to be leaders in the United States Army. So this dismisses us.